So, like with Scramble and Defender, we're going to be playing a bunch of games this time. They're all quite a bit similar. This is Galaxian. It was one of the first games to use RGB graphics in an arcade game. I don't know if it was the absolute first, but as you might see, it's a little bit similar to, well, Space Invaders. Except the Space Invaders in this case have used kamikaze tactics. It's the same basic deal, so I probably won't be playing it very long, especially because we have a total of 5 games to get through. Yes, there are that many games that are that similar in the book. You don't believe me? Well, you're going to be in for quite a treat. What I'm going to try to do here is get through the first wave. I don't want to be spending much time here because I kind of already played this game. I mean, to its credit, it's not a direct ripoff of Space Invaders. In a way, you can kind of call it a parody. I mean, for some reason, whenever it starts, it likes to do the Woody Woodpecker laugh at you, which can get aggravating. But there are other reasons to not include this game in the book, which we will be going through. What these guys like to do is they like to corner you in the corners. Their wavy patterns can be very hard to deal with. Unlike Space Invaders, they don't have that glitch that makes them go faster, so the game isn't very dynamic. In fact, I think they kind of stop whenever you shoot. Like, I've noticed that. There's a bit of a direct pause whenever you fire. Also, the constant wee wee sound effects can get obnoxious. I will say, this game does look very nice compared to other late 70s, early 80s arcade games. I don't know, I just like the colors that these old arcade games tend to use. Come on, just get through the last 3. And we're through the first wave. Let's see how far I can go. And it just repeats. Alright, on to the next game. I know I didn't spend very long on this, but you're going to see why. This is the Steam version of Galaga. Galaga. Galaga is the sequel to Galaxian. Both of them made it in the book. Yeah. So, yeah, you could buy some classic arcade games on Steam. Most people probably wouldn't, considering they're very easy to emulate. But this is a different game and a completely different entry in the book. I'm going to ask you, does this look familiar in any way whatsoever? Like, at all. I'm not really seeing the resemblance. My memory is kind of fuzzy. So I'm not too sure. Maybe you can help me out. What game is this one similar to? Oh, that's right. It's really similar to Galaga, the game I just played. A game that is also in the book. As 2 separate entries. Okay, how do I... Reset game, yeah. Yes. Start the game, please. And yes, I did buy this game on Steam during the summer sale, because I want it to be at least a little bit fair. I like to buy these games when I can. I even bought Pac-Man, even though I didn't really have to. But yeah, 2 separate entries. And guess what? We're just getting started here. Let me try to get through one wave. Immediately, Galaga is a lot easier than Galaxian, and that's probably for the best, considering Galaxian could get very, very frustrating very, very quickly. Stage 2. This one, the patterns are more dynamic, things are much, much more interesting. If you're going to play one of the two, I would advise going with this one. This one is by far the more famous one too. You can often find it in actual arcade machines alongside Miss Pac-Man. I think I mentioned that in the Pac-Man episode. This one I can actually play without exploding. Oh no, it's a challenging stage. Is not very challenging if you ask me. Number of hits. Oh, a challenge stage, not a challenging. Mistranslations have always been a thing, I guess. Stage 4. And they're going full at me this time. For an arcade game, Galaga and Galaxian, they do look really, really nice. I will say that much. But we need to move on, because we got a few games to cover this time around. So, this game is called Phoenix. And I'm going to ask you a question. Does it seem familiar? I mean, right now it doesn't seem familiar, but let's push start and see what happens. Because this game kind of looks and feels a bit familiar to me. So, we get some birdies that fly towards you while shooting. Is a Galaga clone. And it made it in the book. Isn't that nice? And let's say that these bastards have learned some new kamikaze tactics. Okay, I'm gonna be blunt. I really do not like Phoenix. So, not only do we have Galaga and Galaxian, we also have a Galaga clone, Phoenix. Which, honestly, looks awful. Like, I don't know what colors they chose. Like, they probably didn't have many to work with, but they chose, like, the worst kind of pastels or whatever. Okay, the problem with Phoenix is that the enemies just move incredibly erratically. Like, Galaga and Galaxian, yes, they moved, but you could eventually hit them. It wasn't... Like, it's kind of the same problem I have with kicks, to be honest. You just don't know what your enemy is going to do, so you can't really react. And then we get the bubbles. The big birds. Also, the Phoenix theme is just not very good. Almost sounds like a lullaby. Also, Phoenix, like, what does that have to do with space? A phoenix is a bird that comes back to life after it dies. I don't get space shooter out of Phoenix. To be fair, I didn't get ostrich duels at a joust, but, so I think they react to your shooting. I'm not going to be playing this one for long. I already played this game already. It was called Galaga. But, guess what? Yeah, they keep you trapped. But, guess what? It gets worse. Yeah, wait till we get to play the next game in this video, because I am doing a bunch of games in this video. Well, that was Phoenix. So, this here is Gorf, and I'm going to ask you a question. Does this game seem the least bit familiar? Maybe not right now. I mean, it looks like it might be just another space shooter, but that was the genre of the era. The crafting survival game of the 1980s. But how about this? Maybe this. Ooh, the Galaxians. That rings a bell. And you know what? Want to know what the really sad part is? This game was not made by the company that made Space Invaders, or the company that made Galaxian. It was made by Midway. Yeah, you know, the company that made Gauntlet. Also, it talks to you. But yeah. First level, Space Invaders. However, Gorf has a particularly nifty feature where you can't shoot rapidly, because if you shoot and you press the shoot button again, it stops your shot and basically restarts it. Which, I don't know why you would want that to happen. Also, it looks and sounds like shit. This is in the book, though. Like, Phoenix is quote-unquote a clone of Galaga. Or at least it would be if this didn't exist. Mission 2, we're playing Galaga! Or, I have to say, a less fun version of Galaga. Because there's another game that this reminds me of, believe it or not. Big surprise, considering the game we're talking about. But it reminds me of Spore. Spore is a game that's basically 5 games in one, and each of the 5 games are worse versions of other games, and we're going to talk about that when we get to the Spore episode. But you want to play level 1 of Gorf and have it, like, actually fun? Play Space Invaders. While you can't shoot more than once at a time, at least rapidly pushing the button doesn't cancel your shot. Which makes this so much more needlessly frustrating. Also, it doesn't have the glitch that Space Invaders had that makes it fun. The last one just moves quickly because that's what it's programmed to do. The Galaxians didn't shoot at you with long beams of death. Which gave you the room to maneuver. Also, I think the voice synthesis chip is fucking annoying. Also, the title is a rip-off too. It is very similar to Golf. But now here's the part where you're all curious. What does the book have to say about Gorf? Why is Gorf a game you must play? Well, I'm gonna read it to you. They have to have a very, very good case for a game like this. Long live Gorf, cries the Gorf arcade machine when you begin a game, thanks to its Votrack speech synthesizer chip. While the title's legacy lives on, however, Gorf is one of the most frequently overlooked Space Invaders inspired titles from the arcade heyday of the early 1980s. Inspired. Yeah, inspired. Gorf, which stands for Galactic Orbiting Robot Force, is likely passed over because what makes it so groundbreaking, it was the first game to feature distinct levels, also unfortunately makes it a jack of all trades, and a master of none. This is supposed to be selling the game, right? That's how this works, right? It's 1001 video games you must play before you die, so each of these texts is supposed to make me hate the game and its concept before we start, right? Within its 5 missions, Gorf apes its contemporaries, with the first being a battle against the slowly approaching crab-walking invaders, and the third bluntly called Galaxians. The final mission distinguishes itself by featuring one of arcade gaming's earliest bosses, the flagship, before looping back to the first mission with the difference of increased difficulty. The multi-stage design at such an early point in gaming's history unfortunately means that each of Gorf's missions aren't as polished as the precise singular designs of a competing title such as Galaxian's, and several aspects, such as mundane graphics and slightly vague collision detection, make the whole package feel rather less evolved. One unique aspect in particular, the quark laser, which allows the player's spaceship to cancel one of its shots out at any time and refire, feels like a quirk rather than a game-enhancing mechanic. But it's all in the voice. Thanks to the flexibility of its speech synthesizer unit, Gorf's robotic master can taunt the player with 25 different phrases, often directly referencing your current rank, gained by repeatedly beating a set of missions. The game is flawed, but Gorf draws you back because you can't let a machine insult you and then get away with it. Long live Gorf indeed. Don't tell me what I do or don't do. Like, is this a troll? Like, I've played 4 games, and they're so fucking identical. Like, I get that there were slim pickings in the 1980s, you know, or there is if you're going to ignore basically all of the PC games, like every single Sierra Adventure game, every single King's Quest game. But, Gorf? Really? Why? Oh, like, I read the thing, I still don't have an answer. Why? 1001 games you must play? Absolutely not. Nobody should ever play this. That's literally 3 right there. 3 filler entries. And you know what? I don't think we're done here either, because I just might be able to throw in a 5th game. Don't think I can do it? I mean, with 1001 games in the book, I just might be able to. Does this look familiar to you? It should, because we're playing Galaga 88. Insert coin. Press start to push. Just go. Yep. Galaga, Galaxian, and Galaga 88 made it into the book. So let's see how much better it is. I mean, it definitely looks and sounds a lot nicer, but oh, fireworks, how pretty. I'm playing the same game for the 5th fucking time! Look, Defender and Stargate, 2 games that are very similar, that was shameless. for the book to put in both of them. But 5 games. Five of them. Are you beginning to see why I don't like this book very much? Let's try and accomplish something this episode, shall we? Fighter captured. Oh no. Oh yeah, Galaga does that. Oh. I beat a level. But if I sound like I'm getting a little maddened, yeah. I think that this is all of the Galaga that's in the book. I think. But I don't really know. Yeah. Like, I'm going to return to Galaga, the original Galaga, and I'm going to basically do a recap on the one thing we've done in this episode. Okay. This theme song, the Galaga theme, is going to be burned into the back of my brain, my god. Galaga, if you couldn't tell, it's a very influential game. Like, unbelievably goddamn influential, to the point where many other games ripped off its design wholesale. While Galaxian was one of the first games, I don't know if it was the first, to introduce RGB graphics into an arcade game, the popularity and the design really did not take off into the sequel. Where, once it took off, a bunch of other companies decided to rip off the game wholesale. Galaga itself could be seen as a bit of a ripoff of Space Invaders. At the very least, Galaxian was a ripoff. Galaga managed to distinguish itself more from its predecessors by not having the enemies line up right away, by creating more dynamic enemy placement and design, and more complicated versions of, my brain is broken right now. Of the games that I have shown you, Galaga is the must-play. I mean, you might be able to make an argument for Galaga 88, but the reason why I'd go with this one is because Galaga 88 is mostly just nicer graphics, I think. Bunch of fireworks. This one's easier to access, and I think the simplicity really does help it. Like, if you want to play the original Galaga, just go to Steam and buy it. Or, you know, use MAME. Galaga 88 is actually harder to emulate. I had to use a browser version for that one. And the basic Galaga formula is fun, because the basic Space Invaders formula is fun. However, I am not very good at Galaga, as I have demonstrated throughout this entire video, even though I've had to play it 5 fucking times. The arcade cabinet design, which you could see on the sides, is alright. I definitely prefer other ones more, like Centipede, for instance. I do like the colors and the graphics. It's very vibrant, which was not common at the time. And yes, we get these guys who steal your ship. Yeah, Galaga 88 is just a nicer looking remake of the original Galaga, which you could definitely argue is the one that's the must play. But honestly, unlike with Ocarina of Time, it generally plays the exact same way, so I don't think it matters too much. Like, it wasn't even given a new title, it was just Galaga 88. Unlike Galaga, which distinguishes itself from Galaxian. Now, the other 2 games that we've played... Well, first, I guess I should talk about Galaxian. There is no reason to play Galaxian. If you want to see the Galaxian formula done right, and distinguishing itself enough from Space Invaders, play Galaga. Otherwise, Galaxian is just a Space Invaders clone. A colorful Space Invaders clone, but a clone nonetheless. And maybe that's why they didn't sue games like Gorf or Phoenix. Starting with Phoenix, the enemies move too erratically and randomly to really understand what you're supposed to do and how to avoid things. It's kind of the same problem I had with Kicks. And as for Gorf, 1,000 games of shame. My god. Like, I would say that Gorf is probably one of the most shameless games ever made. I don't care if it was one of the first games to introduce multiple levels. Multiple different levels. It's easy to do when you don't... If you want to rip off everyone possible. Gorf certainly is not a must-play. Like I said, it's a game that no one should ever play. And I mean, Space Invaders... Like, I get that Space Invaders were the genre of the time. But there were many ways to make it different and distinguish them. Like, Defender, for instance. That's absolutely nothing like Space Invaders or Galaga. It's its own unique thing. You can do different things with the genre. Centipede is also another shooter like this that also manages to be different. We haven't gotten to that one yet. Let's see. And the Galaga theme is really starting to annoy me. Like, I was never the biggest fan of that, anyway. Like, the Pac-Man theme and the Frogger theme are much more firmly lodged in my head. I like them a lot more. I'm just a little annoyed as well. I know that people don't like me doing like multiple games per episode, but come on, I'm not gonna play an hour of each of these. Like that's not happening. Space Invaders got its own distinct episode, so have some souls to that. And I don't want this playing through all these games to take me like my entire fucking life. So if I can bust through like 5 of these in one afternoon, I'm going to take that opportunity. I'm really glad that of these games that I played, Galaga is the one that I bought. Galaga is fun. Like, it really is. It was so fun, everybody and their grandmother decided to rip it off. And I guess because Galaga started out as a Space Invaders clone in Galaxian, they didn't really have much of a leg to stand on, but still... 2 wrongs don't make a right. And believe it or not, Gorf, Midway was never actually sued, as far as I can tell, for making Gorf. Not by Taito and not by Namco. Like, people complain about rip-offs and stale genres nowadays, but... my god. Like, between Defender and Stargate and Gorf and Galaxian, or Galaga, whatever, the early 80s were exceptionally bad about this. Like, so many sequels were just the same game with a different overlay. Like, we complain about these problems nowadays, but no, they have always been a problem in the gaming industry. Always. Yeah, there are definitely other games that are just flat out clones or mishmashes of previous games. Like, both Asteroids and Lunar Lander are in the book. They're not clones, but guess what? Gravitar is in the book, which is basically a fusion of Asteroids and Lunar Lander. Crystal Castles is a maze game that's very much like Pac-Man. Like, I don't know. I'm just lost for words, I guess. As long as I can bump up my score a little bit. With these 5 games, I think that puts us at the 25 mark, which is nice. Although it doesn't really mean much, considering I've only played 1 game that took me over 10 hours. And most games in the book, I think, are going to take me, like, more than 1 sitting. Like, I'm getting through all of the quickies. But yeah, like, when I say that this book has a filler problem, you should probably believe me. And I think that's enough time that I have spent on this.